Welcome, my friends, to another episode of The Good, the Bad, and the Bible. My name is Rogan, and you are watching The Mysterious Stoner in Ebola. Now, before we continue any further, I must tell you, next week will be a little different because I am moving this weekend. I will no longer be here. You will no longer have to see this background. But do not mistake the change of scenery for an improvement. Because, well, I'm not going to get into the details as to why I'm moving. I just need to move right now, and the place I'm going is temporary, while I look for something more permanent, like a full-size studio or apartment. But I'm renting a room right now, and I'm switching to another room that I'll be renting. It is an upgrade from this, but I will not be doing my filming in it, unfortunately, because, well, the person I'm renting from, it's an excellent deal, and is the best one I have had, the best one I've come across, period, in quite a while that I was able to get. And the person renting is, well, they are I think they are Republican, according to the bumper sticker on their truck. I'm pretty sure they are. They're not very outspoken about it, which is fine by me completely. But the reputation of Republicans in America is that many of them believe in God, and um, and the Bible. So filming this, I don't want to get myself kicked out and cause trouble. So for an indefinite amount of time, I'm not sure how long, as long as it takes till I get another apartment, or unless my landlord is not in the house, in which case then maybe I'll post a video of where I am staying. Well, the inside of the room, anyways. Just maybe. But as far as doing this and the, talking about the Bible and controversial subjects of that nature, I will not be doing that until I get my own place. Hopefully it will not be very long. Hopefully only a month or two. Maybe even less. But so that is what is happening. And so the episode next week will be shorter because I will be moving in and such. It will be in my vehicle, and there is actually lots of area outside where I can film away from where I'm staying, so we might be going back to filming in the woods like I was previously at the beginning of when I started my channel, which would be nice. I like being outside. I miss it, but it's just been too cold lately. And so, the next episode will not be a Bible study type episode or anything. It is going to be an update on the challenge that I have proposed. If you've been watching my videos for a while, you might wonder why I switched my accents. There is a reason. And if you go through my videos and find the one labeled the challenge, I'm pretty sure I state why I use accents in that one. But between that and the introduction to my channel, that will cover all you need to know. So go look over there, because next week will be specifically about the reward for being the first person to, well, there's only one winner, so the first and only winner to complete the challenge will receive a reward, and that is what next week's episode will be about. So now that we have that out of the way, without further ado, let's get into the Bible story of today. Now, going back to where we left off. Well, actually, I cannot quite go back to where we left off last week, because you remember, if you saw the last episode, that I briefly talked about and came across this part of the story where the Israelites, whilst they were in Egypt, were made to build these two cities, Pithom and Ramses, I believe, described as treasured cities in the Bible. And I never recalled coming across those before, or at least not distinctly. And I've stated that some of these things in the Bible are true, but that much of it is not true. And so I was previously under the impression that the story of Israel leaving Egypt was not true, because there are no hieroglyphs depicting it, showing it in the Egyptian archaeology. And so and it was never made clear which pharaoh, even in the Bible, it does not state which pharaoh it was that the Israelites were in Egypt during the reign of. So it's always been very difficult to figure that out. But I did some digging on this, and I came across something rather interesting. A professor of some kind. I was going across different videos on YouTube, because that is, I prefer to learn through listening as opposed to reading. I can learn through all the ways, but hands-on and hearing are my two favorite ways of learning and watching. And so YouTube is one of my favorite ways of learning things, and I try to cross-reference and make sure everything's real, but of course I don't have time to research what everyone says, so what I'm going to give to you, you need to take with a grain of salt. But this video that I came across, I will post the link of in the description below, because I found it very fascinating. It was about it's a lecture given by a Dr. David Neiman, and it is on what he believes to have found is the correct historical era and the events that were occurring during the time of Exodus, during the time of the Israelites and all that. And he kind of course, well, I will post the video and you will watch it and find it most interesting yourself, I'm sure. And, even he said that, much of what is in this story may not have happened, because according to him, and he was wearing a yarmulke, so I'm pretty sure he's an expert on the matters of his own people and the Bible, since that's what he was talking about, and history and such. So his opinion of the Bible and this story in particular is that it is a romanticized novel. So not to be taken like seriously, but more like a historical fiction novel. At least I think that's what he was going for, in a sense, in his description of it. So there were things that took place in this story that were real. There were reasons that the Pharaoh had the Israelites build these two cities of Pithom and Ramses. Very interesting. And he goes through all the different pharaohs that were around, because there were multiple, a total of 3, I think. But he goes through all of them, and it's quite interesting. He starts with Joseph, and he goes through a good bit of the Exodus, further than what we are going today. So I'm as an ex-Christian, I find that very fascinating, because having believed this book for so long, and then finding out that much of what it teaches is not true, it immediately made me not want to believe anything in the Bible. But there were small things that I knew from reading the Bible so much, that's it, like little things like in the book of Proverbs, and some of the things that Jesus said actually are good and useful, and I had to admit that, because I knew the Bible so well. So, but even in spite of knowing that, it's made me, it's still been very difficult for me um, to be more willing to open myself up to things that more of the Bible is true than what I originally thought. But or that, and I've never thought of the Bible as being like a romanticized fictional history-based novel. Never thought of it that way. A fairy tale, yes, but I don't think of fairy tales often as being based on historical or around historical events, usually. Maybe in a historical era, but not this direct, not like a real historical fictional novel. So this is new for me, and so it's very interesting to me, and I'm hope you find it interesting as well. I hope you'll find that video enjoyable. Watch it, come back, tell me what you thought about it in the comments below. But those two places are real, and they were. The doctor gave a very fascinating talk on the matter, and I am more open to the possibilities that the Israelites really did come out of Egypt. I think that now I think that there is a strong possibility that was a real historical thing that occurred. And thinking about it logically, if we take God out of all the equations, and looking at the things that the professor brings up and mentions, because I'm not going to go into all of that. I've already spoken too much before even getting into the story of today. It's really interesting. So check it out after you after this, if you'd like. But we are going to get into where Moses meets God today, and that is what our focus is going to be. Moses and the burning bush. And speaking of burning bushes, I know it's not the same, but it comes from a bush. So we will pick up in chapter 3. Moses is away from Egypt. He's out in the desert. He is married, and I believe he has some children by now. And he is staying with his father-in-law, who is a very rich man. He's apparently a priest of some kind, priest of Midian. Doesn't say who he is a priest for, but we're going to assume it's God. I guess it doesn't say. Anyways, he's taking care of some of the flocks of his father-in-law, and one day he takes them out. It literally says to the backside of the desert, so the ass of the desert. I just find that's kind of amusing. Backside, the ass, and so, and he's. It doesn't say anyone else is with him. That is important. I'll tell you why later. He is with these flocks and says he came to the mount of God, even to Horeb. I don't know what made this mountain a mountain of God, but that's what it says. So it's the mountain of God, apparently. And the angel of the Lord appeared unto him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. And he looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire, and the bush was not consumed. And Moses decides to, he says, I will now turn aside and see this great sight, and why the bush is not burnt. And then God starts speaking to him. Literally says, out of the midst of the bush. And he starts, and he goes in the whole thing, take off your shoes, for the ground you stand on is holy ground, and so on. And then he starts giving Moses all these instructions about going to Egypt and telling Pharaoh, let my people go. And so they get into this whole conversation, and Moses is not entirely thrilled about the idea. Moses is asking God he's asking God, well, what do I do if they don't believe me? How will I convince them? And so God starts doing these miracles for him. He says, well, take the rod in your hand and throw it on the ground. And Moses does it, and it turns into a snake. And God says, pick up the snake by the tail, and Moses picks it up. It turns back into his staff. And then he goes on, he does another one. He tells Moses to put his hand into his coat and then to take it out. And when Moses takes his hand out, it's covered in leprosy. It's white, like super deathly white and withering. And leprosy, very nasty disease. They did not have a cure for it back then. So it was it was a terrible, long way to die. And God says, put your hand back into your coat. So Moses does it. He takes his hand out, and it's normal again. But let me tell you something that God told Moses twice, in fact. Now you would think that God wants to set the Israelites free, right? So you would think that all he wants is to just get them out with as little hassle and difficulties as possible, and with as few casualties as possible. God, being the loving, merciful, just deity that he is, would not want to hurt anyone and send them to the burning afterlife of hell. if he could avoid it, right? 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 And I mean, he would want to get the Israelites out as quickly as possible because they are suffering. He would want to end their suffering, right? Because they don't deserve any of it. So you would think God would want this to be as smooth a transaction as possible. But no. God, in his mysterious ways, says twice. I will read them to you. Verse 19 in chapter 3, he says, "And I am sure that the king of Egypt will not let you go, no, not by a mighty hand. And I will stretch out my hand and smite Egypt with all my wonders, which I will do in the midst thereof. And after that, he will let you go." And then, over in chapter 4, verse 21, oh, he steps it up a little bit more. He says, "The Lord said unto Moses, When thou goest to return into Egypt, see that thou do all these wonders before Pharaoh, which I have put in thine hand." He said, make sure you do all these miracles. And then he says, "But I," God is saying this, "I will harden his heart, that he shall not let the people go. And thou shalt say unto Pharaoh, Thus saith the Lord, Israel is my son, even my firstborn. And I say unto thee, Let my son go, that he may serve me. And if thou refuse to let him go, behold, I will slay thy son, even thy firstborn." God is straight up starting out with one of the highest levels of a threat you can get from an enemy. Where is the love and mercy and compassion and just God here? I mean, I know that the Egyptians are treating the Israelites poorly, but they're just poor sinners that don't know better, right? Surely, if God in his infinite wisdom and power and magnitude could somehow make himself known to the Egyptians so that they would realize their mistake and stop punishing the Israelites, you know, God could have a lot more converts going to heaven. They could all be inducted into the Hebrew or Judaism. I don't know what to call it. They could be made believers in Yahweh. But God says, no, I'm going to harden Pharaoh's heart so I can show off. And then he'll let them go. Because that's how I want it to go. And you make sure to tell him, if he doesn't let them go, I'll kill his firstborn son. Because I can. Because I'm God. And I work in mysterious ways. And I can do whatever the fuck I want. This God is a dick for pretending to be, or for saying that he's all nice and love and compassionate and cares about all humanity and I mean, this is not very pro-life. Just saying. And you know, all of this, all of this happens while Moses is alone. Do you know who else was visited by an angel of God and started their own religion? I've mentioned him here before. He was a known scam artist, much like Abraham, and he believed that God could speak to him through magical stones that he could see, only he could see, if he put them into a hat and he put his face in the hat to look into the stones. Only he could do it. And he was told to go out and he spoke to an angel in the woods who told him where to dig up these golden plates, and then he should copy what the golden plate said, and no one's ever seen these golden plates that this man supposedly found and based the entire religion of the Church of the Latter-day Saints, aka Mormons, on. This isn't too different. Moses goes out by himself. He's in the desert. Who knows how long he's been out there with his sheep and how bored he is. Who knows if he's been taking any drugs, because they had those back then. Could be on some shrooms, could be probably not weed because it doesn't cause hallucinations. There could have been some sort of mirage. He could have been a little bit schizophrenic. There's all kinds of possibilities that could debunk this story because there are no witnesses that this actually happened. Moses could have made up the entire thing. And these miracles, I've actually this is something else I will have to research, and I will have to look up the trick of turning a rod into a snake and then back into a rod, because I have heard, haven't done the research, but I will now for the sake of this channel, and also my curiosity, of course. But now I'm more obligated because I'm doing it for the channel. I have actually heard that the trick of turning a snake into a serpent, snake into a serpent, a staff into a serpent, and a serpent back into a staff is an actual trick that was performed by magicians. I don't know if it's something that is still done or if it was a common trick done back then, but I will look into it, because that is a crazy trick to know. But this whole time, because the Egyptians know how to do it too. We find out later on. And so, yes, it was a bigger thing than just the Bible and a few Egyptian priests that could do it. meaning that a staff turning into a snake, there was a trick to it. It was not a miracle of God. It was a magic trick. A trick of illusion. Maybe some sort of sleight of hand, I don't know. But like I said, I'm looking into it. And I'm excited to find out what the explanations and such are on it. And maybe find out who else did that sort of thing. Now, this leprosy thing, this leprosy trick that he did, I mean, really good makeup, I don't know. He had some way to wipe it off in his coat, I don't know. But if you have ever watched magicians, like the professional ones, they can pull things out of anywhere and seem to change clothes instantly and do all sorts of crazy reality defying tricks, or at least it looks like it's defying reality. But there's some sort of illusion or sleight of hand or something. There is something to what they are doing. There's an explanation. There's an explanation for everything. And I believe that is a good part of what is going on here. These are tricks that Moses probably learned, quite possibly from the priest of Midian, because the priest would know some of these things about how to fool people, potentially. Because not all people who claim to be religious are real. A lot of them are in it for the money. A lot of them know how to put on a good show and fool people into giving them their money. They know how to do fake tricks that make them look like they're doing miracles and things like that. They do it all the time on TV today. Only probably not as good. Because I have a feeling these guys were probably, they knew how to combine preaching and magic tricks into one. And quite possibly, I mean, if you could get rich by making people think you're a god, by doing simple magic tricks that you can learn to do, you have the potential to make a lot of money. If you can keep your divinity or your supposed connection with God seemingly real to the people who have no idea that your tricks are just tricks and not miracles. So that is my argument against this entire conversation between Moses and God and these tricks. Two last quick things, and then we will wrap up this little story. In verse 14 of chapter 4, we see Moses keeps asking God these questions, and then we see God getting angry. It says, the anger of the Lord was kindled against Moses. And it doesn't really matter why, or I should say what Moses asked, because it's not like Moses was being rebellious. If you look at this thing he asks, it sounds like he's making excuses sometimes, or perhaps he's just coming up with a lot of good questions. It's possible that he is simply full of anxiety, if we're taking this story seriously. And God gets angry with him for this. I mean, Moses is only a sinful human being. He has every right to ask questions and to I mean, God gave him the ability, the freedom of speech, right? He gave him a brain to think. to be able to ask, and then he gets angry at Moses for using them. I find that rather peculiar. It makes me not want to trust this God, especially when God is supposed to be the epitome of how humans are supposed to act. Human, sorry, well, yes, God wants humans to be, I mean, well, okay. In the Bible, it talks about the fruits of the Spirit, which are like all these positive traits: love, kindness, generosity, or charity, love, but patience. Patience is one of them. And God loses his patience with Moses here. Because there's really no reason why the almighty, all-wise, all-powerful God, omnipotent being, if he is like everywhere at once, he's all the power in the world, he's the ultimate being ever. Shouldn't he have unlimited patience as well? And his anger doesn't even he doesn't it's hard to explain without getting into the details of what they are talking about. But Moses wants someone to speak for him because he doesn't want to speak directly to Pharaoh, and God is like, just shut the fuck up and do what I tell you, basically. But except he doesn't say that. The fact that it says that God got angry at Moses makes it sound like that's what he was thinking. But he kind of goes along with what Moses says, as like, well, you've got your brother who's apparently an older brother who was never mentioned before till now. It's like, he's there, he can speak Egyptian or whatever, he can I'll tell you the words, and then you will tell the words to your brother Aaron, and then Aaron will be the translator or relayer or whatever to Pharaoh. Very, very, like, why couldn't God just tell Moses to ball up? Get your shit together, be a man. Or he didn't even say that. He just goes along with what Moses is kind of asking for, but still gets angry. Why? The ultimate example of patience and love and understanding would get angry at this sinful human being that is flawed, because God couldn't be bothered to put a fence around the tree of the garden of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Couldn't be bothered to be responsible, but he's angry when the results of his lack of responsibility show up and bother him. It's your fault that Moses is imperfect, God. Don't get angry at him, be angry at yourself. And then the last thing is just 3 verses that got stuck into here. It doesn't really have anything to do with God. Oh, no. The first one does. And then it's like, what the fuck after? Like, what? No, the whole thing is, what the fuck is going on? It's just kind of funny because they are talking about God, and Moses are talking about Pharaoh and Aaron and all that, and then the scene suddenly changes, and it says, and it came to pass, by the way, in the inn, I guess in like the hotel or Motel 6, whatever. And I don't even know what exactly, like, where this is. Like, did Moses go to a hotel on the way back uh, to his father-in-law? I don't know. I don't know what's going on here. And then it says, it came to pass by the way in the inn that the Lord met him and sought to kill him. I don't know who this him is referring to, but I can only assume that it's Moses. I don't know. That is the only thing I can think of at this point in the story. And then it says, then Zipporah, Moses' wife, took a sharp stone and cut off the foreskin of her son and cast it at his feet, and said, surely a bloody husband art thou to me. As in the last verse, so he let him go. I don't know who let who go. God let Moses go, or God let the son? Was God trying to kill the son? I don't, or was he trying to kill Moses? I don't know. Uh, um, I've heard arguments go both ways. And then it says, so he let him go. God let someone go. Then she said, a bloody husband thou art, because of the circumcision. I don't know what happened. Nothing is said. The rest of the verses here, it just goes on to say that God told Moses to go meet his brother Aaron, and he does, and they talk, and Moses tells Aaron what to say to Pharaoh, and they're back in Egypt at this point, apparently, and the people are believing, and like Moses is saying the words and doing the miracles or magic tricks for the Israelites, and they're believing him. Nothing else around the 3 verses about Moses' wife taking her son's penis and nothing. Nothing says that God told Moses, "Oh, by the way, if you want to be in on the covenant, you need to circumcise your sons and yourself, because I know the Egyptians don't. I don't know if the Egyptians did or not. I'm just guessing. But there's nothing said about that, and then all of a sudden God is, yes, it says that the Lord met him and sought to kill him. So whether it was Moses or his son, I don't know. But it sounds like God was taking this circumcision shit way too seriously. And we've talked about circumcision before in this series, because God demanded it from Abraham. He said, you have to cut off the tip of your penis if you want to be in on the blessings. I will give you so many generations of descendants to be like the sands of the seas, the stars of the sky, and you get all kinds of blessings, but you have to cut the tip of your penis. Sorry, that's the rule. This God is fucking freaky. but the tradition apparently survived since Abraham, or somewhat maybe it. I don't know if it was a Midian thing or like Moses' father-in-law really wanted it and was like using his skills of tricking people to make Moses think that God was trying to kill him. I don't know. All we get are these three measly little verses that have no other context around them. It's just very confusing and like it makes God even worse of an individual, in my opinion, trying to kill Moses over this after they've. It seems like they've already. Well, nothing is said if Moses agrees to go, but there's nothing saying that he doesn't. So what's the fucking deal? I don't know. The Bible is a weird book. It's quite possible that whatever was supposed to be there is just completely removed. I feel like that's what happened here. Something before and something after was probably taken out of the Bible by whoever decided to put these books together. Because they didn't just decide which books should go in the Bible, they also made some edits. And things were lost in translation, because I just learned, also while watching this video on the Exodus by this Hebrew doctor, that in the Hebrew language there are three different words for gold, and in English there is only one. So there are obviously going to be things missing in the Bible between the languages, which, really does not make this Bible very complete, just in that aspect. But with this right here, I think it's quite obvious that we are missing a whole bit of an explanation as to what was going down. I think there was more to it, and either it is legitimately lost in time, just out of, like, maybe it was stained over in that part of the Dead Sea Scrolls or whatever, to where no one could read that part ever after, the spill was made. Or it was taken out on purpose. Those are the only two options I can think of. And if God cares so much about his book and being clear with humans as to what they need to do, which he does a terrible job of if we just go by what we have here, well, there's nothing more that can be said. He did a terrible job. There's valuable shit missing here. If God is real, and heaven is real, and hell is real, and everyone's going to burn there, and because they didn't believe in Jesus Christ or whatever, and all that shit, then if circumcision is so important, shouldn't we have the rest of the story so we can know what's going on, so we don't make the same mistakes that Moses did? Huh? Wouldn't that make sense? What kind of a God is this? He gives us like 3 pieces of a story to make it go along with this other little bit of information about the covenant with Abraham, and we get that. We get that. Actually, yes, we get that in its full glory of God talking about circumcision and everything. But over here, just to back that up, we get these three little verses out of a story that isn't here at all. And it's just stuck in here. Like it doesn't belong at all. Like, why wouldn't they take these three verses out as well? If the before and after to make these three verses make full sense, like what? Why would they take those out if it conflicted with what they wanted, but leave these three in here? Because these three don't say a whole lot. We really don't know what Moses did, or Moses' son did, to make God want to do this. I mean, God already got angry with him once. So much for his infinite wisdom and understanding of humanity. Otherwise, he wouldn't get angry. And this anger did absolutely nothing to make the situation better. It just says that he got angry. And then here he's trying to kill Moses, or Moses' son, because Moses' son wasn't circumcised. Circumcise your son, or I'm going to kill you. Huh. What kind of a God is this that you would want to worship and pray to? That I used to want to worship and pray to. And by the way, if you want to look up that little bit, it's in chapter 4 as well, verses 24, 25, and 26. But otherwise, that is the end of our Bible study for this evening. So I hope you have found it interesting and informative. And if you have any comments, please leave them down below. And leave a like, share, subscribe if you haven't. I am exhausted. But I cannot go to bed yet, for I have some serious packing to do. Without further ado, I will get to it. So, you stay safe. Until next time, my friends. Farewell.